kings and queens. Welcome back to yet another episode of Faith Helps Podcast. And I am, of course, your host, Diamond Blue. And if you tuned in last week, thank you. And if you are returning, thank you. And if this is your first time here, welcome. You are in for a treat, as I always say. So I know it's actually been a while since I've given my typical disclaimer that I started off the first few episodes with, but I want to revisit it just as a reminder in case anyone is a new listener. So just as a disclaimer, please remember that this podcast does not replace actual therapy, and in no way does listening to this podcast mean that you are receiving therapy. And if you are experiencing a mental health emergency or safety concerns of any sort, please call 911. And if you need assistance getting connected with a mental health provider, a therapist, or just extra support, you can visit my personal website, www.faithhelpsllc.com. If you or someone you know is experiencing financial disparities, such as poverty, you can visit my nonprofit website, www.forthekingdom, FORTHEKINGDOMINC.com. There you will find pro bono and sliding scale mental health resources and all other things that might be really helpful for you. Okay? Cool. All right. Okay. So actually this week we had concluded our discussion on healing last week, and we ended with the heavyweight champ himself, God being the source of the ultimate healing we could receive. And if you missed out on that series of healing, we talked a lot about not just healing when it comes to our relationship with God. We also talked about what it looks like in therapy, and we did a little Q&A with questions about therapy and readiness for healing and all sorts of things. So if you missed that series, please go back and check it out and get caught up, okay? Now, today, I actually want to revisit a topic in a new way. So earlier on in this season, I did an episode, I believe it was episode 2, where we talked about taking territory. And that encompassed acknowledging what it is that you feel particularly called or pulled to do and making steps towards whatever that is, regardless of how many other people are already doing it, right? You guys remember that? If not, go back and check it out. And that was primarily the main point of that episode. However, I would be remiss, and this came to me as I was kind of just reflecting back on some of the themes and topics that have come up and how they not only apply to what's happening in our world today and some of the things that I've been seeing with my clients and different people I'm working with, but as well as myself in my own life. And I realized I would be remiss if I didn't highlight what brought me to that topic of taking territory in the first place, which when we really examine it, it boiled down to insecurities, right? So when we shy away from something because we feel like there are other people who are quote unquote already doing it, that implies we are comparing ourselves and comparing our lanes, if you want to think about it that way, and kind of putting ourselves in an unnecessary competition. And as we discussed in that episode, insecurities flourish in the pit of comparison. And that's what I wanted to kind of double down on this episode. So yes, you could argue, no, it's just that I want to be unique. I'm not comparing myself. Okay, but unique means to be the only one of its kind and unlike anything else. Both of those phrases, my darling, require comparison. You can't say something is unique without having something to compare it to. And the moment you include anything else in a description of something, that in and of itself, darling, is a comparison. Okay? Now, I just feel it in my spine that someone just got offended or defensive about this. Hold up. Pump your brakes. Breathe, baby girl. Breathe, baby boy. All right, hear me out. Okay. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. And it's not. It is not necessarily a bad thing. However, it can become an unhealthy habit to have. It can be an unhealthy mindset to feed into. For example, if you are constantly hyper-focused and ruminating on comparison to the point that it is ruling your life, impacting your ability to function, ruining your relationships, or causing you to deviate from what you feel called to do or your purpose and dreams, yeah, at that point, it is a problem. But to be quite honest with you, we all struggle with comparison. Every single person alive, living and breathing and walking and talking has at some point struggled with comparison. Literally, everyone at some point has struggled with comparison. If you say you haven't, you're lying. Even if it's just a little bit. Why? Well, because again, as I've reiterated before in each episode, we are human. We are human. When I was preparing for this episode, I Googled image search the word comparison, right? I'm a very visual person. So I just have a huge appreciation for imagery and art and visual illustrations of things. Like seeing words come alive and concepts in action is how I retain information. And it doesn't help that I'm a creative, so I just can't help it, right? My mind is just, wired that way. Anyway, when I searched comparison in images, one of the images that came up was an image of two cats sitting together on a porch. Now, as I describe this, I would like to invite you guys to visualize this scene, okay? And if you're on my YouTube, you see the image because I will plug it into the video. But visualize this image of two cats sitting together on a porch. Okay, you got it? You got the scene, imagining the wood, the fresh air that's surrounding them, all of that, okay? Now, one has stripes and the other has spots. The striped cat had a large mouse in front of it, and the spotted one appeared to be sad or disappointed and had a much smaller mouse in front of it. And beneath the image was this quote: "Comparison is the thief of joy, Mittens." Obviously, the quote stood out to me because comparison is the thief of joy. What also stood out to me, though, with me just being the empath that I am, was the intense sadness and disappointment, I'd even argue shame, that the spotted cat seemed to portray. His head completely down, his ears drooped low, his eyes nearly closed, if not actually closed, and his sunken shoulders. Man, how many times have we found ourselves looking like that? I can count dozens and dozens of times for myself when I just looked as though all the joy had been just stripped away from me. Even the striped cat in the image with the larger mouse seemed to empathize with the spotted one, just going off of its frown and slightly downward ears. didn't seem to portray the same level of excitement that, a cat that just caught this huge mouse typically would. What I got from the image was that the spotted cat's sadness or disappointment and shame was based on comparison. Comparing the size of his mouse to the other. This is why comparison can be unhealthy, even toxic, because it leads us to focus more on what we are lacking instead of the joy in what we have. Comparison leads us to feel inadequate and insufficient because we are looking at what everybody else got going on instead of appreciating and valuing the fruits of our own labor in our own lane. The quote in the image called comparison the thief of joy. That's exactly what it is, a thief. We really gotta change how we are looking at things sometimes. What thieves have you been allowing to parade around in your life? What thieves have been stripping away things in your space and mind, in your home? What about in your relationships? Because some of the things that we are calling our personality is actually comparison in disguise, smearing toxicity all over the walls of our minds, in the framework and boundaries of our relationships, smearing insecurity and inadequacy, throwing self-destruction like paint against a canvas all over the walls of our hearts, our minds, and the way we function, and stealing our peace, stealing our confidence, stealing our self-worth and our wholeness and more. What thieves have you been allowing in your life? I actually want you to think about that. Like, slow down in this moment and ask yourself, what thieves have I been allowing in my life? Examine your life. Examine your behaviors and your patterns. What areas do you see peace and confidence being taken away from you and replaced with inadequacy, toxicity, insecurity or fear, self-destructive or self-loathing behaviors and mindsets? What thieves are running around in your life? Take inventory of the relationships you are connected to. Pay more attention to what you say to and about yourself. How do you talk about you? How do you describe you? Do you describe yourself as, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not qualified, I don't have enough experience, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not as pretty as them, or I'm not as fit as them? What does your self-talk look like? Do you build yourself up or do you tear yourself down? And then to take it a step further, sometimes we disguise it as a joke and we think it's funny. We make ourselves the butt of the joke before someone else does. We try to beat people to beating us down, right? We figure that if we say it, then no one else can say it. I tell my clients all the time, what we do in therapy is only half the work. The other half is what you do once you leave my office. How are you applying what you learned? Are you making self-reflection a once a week or bi-weekly activity that you just check off your list in therapy? Or do you make it a daily lifestyle, a habit? Are you examining the quality of your thoughts? Do your thoughts look like every single day you are making self-deprecating comments? Or you're convincing yourself out of opportunities because of your insecurities and your fear and your anxiety and your depression and your social anxiety, instead of confronting it and replacing it with statements and affirmations that build you up and remind you of who you are and who you are called to be, who you were designed to be. What does your mind look like? Do you like living in your own mind? Is it a safe and comfortable place? Because if it's not, you got some work to do. You have some work to do. Your mind is the one place, your mind and your body are the places that are with you everywhere you go. You cannot separate from them. You can't. They're going to be with you when you wake up. They're going to be with you when you go to sleep. They're going to be with you when you go to work. They're going to be with you in your relationships, in your marriage. You can't use other people to escape from it. You are going to have to live with your mind and your body for the rest of your life, so long as you are living on this earth. So you might as well make both of them a healthy and safe space to be. And that requires you to do the work, you to take accountability, you to make an effort. No one can do that for you, not even a therapist, not a psychiatrist, not a medication, no one. You have to make that choice. And might I even say, God is not going to do it for you either. And that is not a slight or disrespect at all, but is reality. We talked a while ago about God giving us free choice. Well, the same applies to how we choose to take autonomy and responsibility and accountability over our lives and our thoughts. Are you doing the work? When that negative thought comes up, do you let it just run around and prance around in your mind? Or are you challenging it and confronting it? Whether actually sitting there and replacing it with a healthier thought, or reframing it, or getting up and doing something about whatever that thought is making you believe about you. If you are going to therapy, are you only doing the work in therapy, or do you make it a lifestyle? And every single day, whether you're with a therapist or not, you are applying the skills that you were taught. You are applying the effort. You are being conscious of what you are doing and what you can do to better yourself, your health, mental, emotional, psychological, physical, and spiritual. One thing about me that is actually a fairly recent development is that I don't play about my time being wasted. If you are not ready to do the work, don't take this opportunity from someone else who is ready to do the work and has that commitment and that investment. I view therapy as a collaboration. I can't do all of the work for you, and I won't. No. I still love you. I still care about you, but I will not do the work for you. You have got to be willing to do it yourself. You've got to want it bad enough. And wanting it is not enough. You have to actually put that want into action and take steps. Now, will there be some rough patches? And will there be times or even seasons when you need a little more encouragement? Of course. I have no problem being your biggest cheerleader. I'll get the pom-poms out and everything. But you gotta be willing to get off the bench at some point and get back in the game. Don't have me out here cheering you on if you have no intentions of getting back in the game. And likewise, this applies to your support system and your accountability partners. When we talked about that episode with What the Friend with Shatima, the guest speaker that came on, my personal friend, one of the things we emphasize is that the people that are around you should be able to hold you accountable, but also speak truth and life into you. That truth is not just for you to hear it, but for you to apply it. The accountability isn't just for them to name the thing that you're struggling with and to encourage you to do otherwise. It's for them to challenge you to do what you say that you're going to do and what you need to do. What does your work look like? Write it down. Get a plan together. When I encourage people to develop their goals and their plans, the things that they want to accomplish, I really encourage using SMART goals. Some of you might be familiar with it, but SMART goals is an acronym, and the S stands for, if I can remember correctly, is specific. So that is the who, the what, the where, the how, being specific about what the goal is. So when you think about specific and making your goal or your plan specific, it is thinking about the desired outcome and making sure that it is clearly understood. Define what you want to accomplish and the actions or the step-by-step structure that you need to put in place in order for those actions to be taken and to accomplish the goal. And SMART, the M stands for measurable. So how are you going to be able to evaluate or assess how you want to feel and see or hear or things, or once the goal has been reached, how do you want to feel about yourself? What would that end mark look like? Basically, that's what that means. So to give another example to clarify that a bit, if your goal is measurable, and let's say your goal is that you want to be more efficient in practicing affirmations. Well, okay, what would that look like at the end? Like, what does that actually look like? Because if you don't have a clear vision of what it looks like for you to accomplish that goal, how are you going to know when you have accomplished it? Or maybe you want to create it into something that's a habit. And you want to say that you want to practice positive affirmations 3 times a week on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. However you want to identify it, but making it something that you can actually evaluate and assess. And then the A stands for things that are actually achievable. So when you think about the fact that any goal that you set in your life, you can have long-term goals, short-term goals, whatever, but is it actually something you can achieve? Setting lofty goals can be good, but you want to make sure to break them down into something smaller and bite-sized chunks, right? So, for example, if your goal is that you want to be a better person, okay, that is a pretty big goal. Let's break that down into parts. What do you qualify or define or understand as what it would look like for you to be a better person? Maybe something that comes to mind is to volunteer more at soup shops or something. But be specific but then make sure it's measurable. And is that actually something you can achieve? Now, if you work over 60 hours a week, is that really an achievable goal? So thinking about how you can make those larger goals bite-sized. So like things that you can achieve in the time that you're setting. And the R, they should be relevant. So your goals should be aligned with the ultimate like mission that you have for yourself, the overall success that you want to see once this goal is achieved. Is it relevant to what your values are and your morals are? And then the last one is just time. What deadlines do you want to set for yourself? Is there a deadline? Some things are a continuous process. Being mindful of that. How much time do you need to set aside for this? Maybe if your goals related to therapy, how much time do you want to set aside for going to therapy, and for how long? The therapist might be a very good resource to collaborate with on that. Maybe you want to do 8 sessions. Maybe you need a year. Maybe you need less than that. Maybe you only need a couple of sessions to work through something specific. But use and apply this when you are thinking about what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then ultimately focusing on you, not on what everyone else is accomplishing. When it comes to making your goals and being smart about them, you have to look at your lane. What is your desires? What is your vision for you? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? If you're trying to be more emotionally healthy, what does that look like? If you're trying to be healthier in how you think, okay, well, what do you want? What steps do you need to do in order to do that? Maybe therapy isn't your thing. Maybe you want to do some more mindfulness workouts, or maybe you want to join a group, a support group, or maybe you want to join a care group at your church, or maybe you want to start journaling every evening. What would it look like? And then once you have that vision of what you're trying to accomplish, put it into actionable steps and focus on your lane. If you're sick of being robbed by comparison, you're going to have to focus on you, and you're going to have to do the work. Maybe it looks like therapy, or maybe you need to clear out your social media. Let's jump on that bandwagon for a little bit. Unfollow the people you spend the most time comparing yourself to. And some of us just need to delete social media altogether. Like, watch who has your ear. Maybe you need to hit the mute button on some of the voices that have been speaking to you, gossiping with you, filling your mind with garbage instead of fruit. Maybe there are some friendships and relationships you need to put some distance between. Maybe there are some boundaries you need to set for yourself. Regardless of what it is, you are going to have to be the one to do it. It won't and it can't be done for you, sweetie. You gotta do the work. And let me just say this, and I would like to just keep it real. And I just feel like this is an important point to really hone down on, right? I said earlier, God won't even do it for you. Matter of fact, that was a clear statement, not even a question, because that's part of the foundation of this podcast. You can be holier than the holies of holies, speaking tongues daily, morning, noon, and night, and know the Bible from cover to cover, yet that still does not exclude you from having to do the work. Yes, God can empower you, strengthen you, and guide you. I want to clarify that. He can and will do those things. Absolutely. No question about it. But you have to put it into steps. You have to be intentional. We talked about intentionality last week. It applies here as well, not just to your spiritual life. It also applies to your psychological health, your emotional, mental, social, interpersonal, and physical health. You have to put it into action. Faith without works is dead. You have to work. I'd be curious how many of you can count how many times I said you have to do the work. But in all honesty, God gave us freedom to choose. At the end of the day, babes, you have to choose to turn away from unhealthy habits and mindsets, which might mean you have to delete your social media. Might it suck? Yeah. But He will give you the wisdom and the strength to do it. Let's get practical with this, okay? You have to schedule the therapy appointment. He will make the financial provisions available to you. You have to turn off the post notifications. He will give you wisdom on how to fill that time and that space to be more responsible and more productive in a healthy way that can still be fun and engaging and stimulating. How about this? You have to stop Netflix and chilling with Big Booty Judy, knowing dang on well those short shorts she always wears when she comes over gets you all hot and bothered, and he will increase your self-control, but you have to be willing to make the step of stopping the behavior, declining the call. Here's one last one, and I'm kind of getting on myself with this. You have to stop ordering the double Whopper Juniors. And God will restore your health. But in each one of those examples, notice that your action comes before His response, provision, or reaction. You have to do something, God fulfills what He has already said He has made available to us. Just like therapy, relationship with God is a partnership. And if you do your part, He got you. I'm a witness. Can I get a witness that Jesus? Anybody know Jesus? Won't He make a difference in your life? I'm all out of tune, but I figured you guys had been deprived of my singing for quite a bit, so I just had to throw that in there. That's the Clark Sisters, for those of you who didn't know that reference, a little throwback. But for real, y'all, you gotta do your part, okay? Be a part of your own rescue. Coming back to the point of comparison, being a thief, okay? Comparison is a thief, and you have to stop letting comparison in. Serve that eviction notice, change the locks, close the windows, guard your heart and mind. Pay attention to your impulses and your urges. Whenever you're trying to turn away from something that has been natural or habitual for you to do, it's not going to be easy. It requires that word, work. I didn't expect for us to go here, but here we are. Maybe the title of this podcast needs to be Do the Work. Don't be naive in this. I know we've been focusing on comparison, but comparison isn't the only thief out there after your joy. There are thieves seeking and lurking to steal your joy. Insecurity, shame, guilt, confusion, bitterness, unforgiveness, resentment, rage, pride. They are all after your joy. And I say lurking intentionally because, like comparison, these are things that don't just show up politely, requesting an invitation into your home or your mind or your body, or shall I say your heart. Nah, they lurk. They're strategic and masking themselves. They blanket themselves under phrases like, they got what they deserve. Okay, well, how many times were you supposed to get what you deserved, but you were forgiven instead? and that friend let you back into their inner circle, or that spouse took you back into the relationship. What's actually happening is resentment and unforgiveness has been scoping out your weak spots and is sneaking its way in. And for those of us who feel like we've never been extended grace, mercy, and forgiveness, and have never been given the benefit of the doubt, and don't ascribe to the belief of a higher power who does that on a daily for you, I challenge you. I challenge you to be the one to change that narrative. I challenge you to be the change agent and choose to be the one to forgive faster than you resent. Set a new example for those who are around you and following behind you and coming up after you and connected to you. Even your friends, they are learning from you. You'd be surprised who's watching. And ladies, that hashtag I'm too good for this and I can do bad all by myself motto might actually be pride slithering its way into the depths of your heart. You asking God, where's your husband? And he's like, sis, I sent him 12 times. But you said he didn't make enough money. You want him to have 6 figures, an LLC, no kids, a house, and a Bentley, but you still sleeping on an air mattress with a 250 credit score and been pursuing your MBA for 8 years. Huh? Say what? Now I'm going to leave that alone. That's a topic for another day. And don't get it twisted. Saints do it too. Saints do it too. Saying it just as wholesomely as possible. I'm waiting on a sign from the Lord. No, baby, you're afraid to make moves. It's okay. I was there. That's part of the reason this podcast took so long to get launched. I kept waiting on a sign and confirmation from the Lord. But it was really just fear robbing me of joy, purpose, and confidence. And okay, this one is one of my favorites. Born again saints put it like this: well, God's still working on me. Newsflash, that's complacency, mediocrity, and laziness creeping in. Instead of apologizing and admitting when you're wrong, you say, well, God ain't through with me yet. Whew. I low-key feel like I'm in my bag today with these examples. I know somebody been waiting for someone to say it. Well, here I am. It's me, oh Lord. Because for real though, the truth is you don't want to put in the work to change your attitude and behavior or how you treat others and the people you think are less than you. Don't forget, God uses the foolish things to confound the wise. So that same janitor or truck driver you're devaluing and disrespecting is actually the one God appointed to change the world and could be the one he placed in your life to change yours. That unplanned child you were gifted to give birth to, but belittle and call him or her a mistake because of your own resentment and selfishness and irresponsibility or hurt or trauma, is actually God's answers to those prayers you were praying long before they were even conceived. In all seriousness, we gotta do better. We gotta do our part in the work. And that requires us to really take a good look at ourselves. Be curious about the things you have a tendency to say or do, the things that have become a habit. That's how you expose what thieves you've let sneak in. And these questions I ask you guys aren't for aesthetic. They're intended to stimulate you to think and reflect. They are intended for your growth. This podcast isn't a one-way street. When I say pray for me, I'm serious. Pray for me. And I still got a lot of work to do, and I got a lot to work on within myself. I still have a cross I have to pick up daily. I'm not perfect. And I hope that never comes across when I give you guys this feedback. And likewise, I'm not expecting any of you to be perfect either. All I am asking you to do is try. Not try to be perfect, but try your best to do the work. Try your best to make the changes. Try your best to apply what you've learned and are learning day by day. Don't just realize what you need to change. Make the steps to do it. Make them actionable. Put more effort into choosing better for yourself and to be a better version of yourself. Not for everybody else, but for you first. You gotta want it. You've got to close the door on every thief seeking and lurking to steal your joy. You've got to practice the self-awareness to spot what thieves you're allowing to creep in. It's on you. And you can do it. Never forget that. Until next time, if nothing else, kings and queens, love on somebody, love on yourself, and remember, faith helps.